or use a typewriter for a school paper? Then here's a timely alert. Americans born from 1945 to 1965 are 5 times more likely to have hepatitis C, which often has no symptoms, but is a leading cause of liver cancer. The good news? Treatments are available that can cure hepatitis C. Talk with your doctor about getting a blood test for hepatitis C. Know for sure. A message from the CDC. Good news? Treatments are available that can cure hepatitis C. Talk with your doctor about getting a blood test for hepatitis C. Know for sure. A message from the CDC. Good news? Treatments are available that can cure hepatitis C. With your doctor about getting a blood test for hepatitis C. Know for sure. A message from the CDC. Good news? Treatments are available that can cure hepatitis C. With your doctor about getting a blood test for hepatitis C.
And welcome to Patriot Lament. We don't quit celebrating Christmas just because the 25th went by. Ridiculous. Get to hear all this Christmas music for only like 2 weeks and it's done. Not around here.
I think it's really 12 days of Christmas, right? So the 6th would be the last day, which is when the Russians celebrate Christmas.
Yeah. There are, I think, 9 or 12 countries that celebrate on the 6th.
Mm-hmm.
That's the the day traditionally that, well, recordedly, the wise men, the Magi from the east, stopped in and saw Herod,
which, you know,
which is the whole gift-giving part.
Right. Which would, yeah, that would actually make more sense if the gifts were given on the 6th of January rather than on the 25th of December, right?
Well, it would, Mike.
Trying to keep the timeline consistent.
But we don't do things like that. All right, welcome to Patriot Lament. My name is Joshua Bennett, and we got Mike Anderson here in studio and Dave Giesel online. You there, Dave?
I am here.
Oh, right on. Okay, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
We are also live on YouTube. You can go to our YouTube channel at Patriot Lament or search Patriot Lament or Radio Free Fairbanks. Either way, we'll get you there. You can join us there and make comments in the chat section. Sometimes we will immediately follow up on those. Sometimes we will completely ignore them. Just to be upfront about it. Also, obviously, we're on 660 KFAR AM, 97.5 on the FM dial, which is mucho more better for your listening experience. Check us out on the TuneIn app on your iPhone or regular, whatever that other kind's called, your Google. I don't know. The non-iPhone folks. It's still there. Yeah, that's about it. So, guys, we got a little discussion I wanted to start off here with that I thought was interesting. So, Christmas time, most of the narrative around it that most people, about hope and peace, and mostly hope and peace, charity, stuff like that. And the Queen. And so, if you ever hear somebody say the Queen, who do you think of?
The Queen of England?
Yes. Everyone kind of thinks the Queen. You think of Queen of England.
Mm-hmm.
She had a nice Christmas note for her folks, which that would be you, Dave.
It'd be you too, you just don't know it.
Yes, that's quite true. So, this is from Target Liberty, which everyone should go to at least 6 times a day. Queen goes politically correct and climate alarmist in her Christmas massage. Says, perhaps not surprisingly, the United Kingdom's Queen Elizabeth surfed the waves of political correctness and climate alarm in her Christmas message this year. She specifically used the term womankind after mentioning mankind, as if she wasn't aware that the word mankind refers to all human beings and not a gender, from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. First known use of mankind, 13th century. Meaning defined in the sense one, human race, the totality of human beings. Then she nodded at save the planet nonsense. And this is the part that, I'll read the second part. My family and I are inspired by the men and women of our emergency services and armed forces. Because, you always want to make sure you're remembering your armed forces during the season of peace. And at Christmas, we remember all those on duty at home and abroad who are helping those in need. Okay, killing them? And keeping us and our families safe and secure. Quite the Christmas message. This is the part I want to talk about. She nods at the save the planet nonsense. The challenges many people face today may be different to those once faced by my generation. What was the challenge that her generation faced? World War II.
World War II.
Right?
Yeah.
The challenges many people face today may be different to those once faced by my generation, but I have been struck by how new generations have brought a similar sense of purpose to issues such as protecting our environment and our climate. Okay, So my little comment into the comment section was, fake climate change is as much of a challenge today as the Battle of Britain against the Nazis. She's stupid. Her Royal Majesty maybe needs to be put into the loony bin. So, as he puts it, Wenzel puts it, climate alarmist nonsense. And I just thought she must be senile to a point. If she really believes that. Of course, I don't think that she does. I mean, could she possibly believe the Battle of Britain when their Nazis were Hinkle-Hoffling, their Hinkle bombers and their Mr. Schmitzenhoffers and trying to bomb England into submission, which they had, but luckily for the Brits, the German officers were stupid because they had defeated the Royal Air Force, and then after a little surprise bombing of Berlin, Hitler and his boys decided we'll give it back to them and started focusing on bombing London and populated cities, which before they were focused on just destroying the Air Force of, well, would be called the Army Air Force at the time because there was no real quote-unquote Air Force. Except for the Germans. They kind of had their Luftwaffe. So they give up taking out. The Battle of Britain was won by the Nazis because they had destroyed the Brits' morale. Well, maybe not their morale, but they did destroy their the Royal Air Force, and they had nothing to stop an invasion. If the Germans so chose, except the Germans weren't really adequately prepared to do a D-Day launch, really. But they quit doing that and started bombing London, and gave the Royal Air Force overtime to rebuild their Hurricane fighters, and more specifically, the wonderful Spitfire. Which the Spitfire was able to start knocking down the bombers that were coming over, because their bombers weren't all that great, the Germans. They were light duty. And started knocking down the V-1 rockets that were coming across, because they were slow. But Germans are bombing night after night after night, after night after night after night. Every night. Well, no, I wasn't there. Most nights, from what I've read, you woke up to the alarms going off, grabbed your family, you went into the tunnels while you listened to the bombs blowing up, shaking the tunnels, coming back to maybe your house being gone, destroyed, family members dying, children screaming, crying, not knowing if they're going to live through it. Obviously would be horribly scary for everyone involved. And the Queen of England equates that to climate change. She lives through that. And she equates that to something that's absolutely made up. And she knows that it's made up. She knows that climate change has nothing to do with mankind, that the Earth does what it does and has been since it was created. So why, folks? Why, my dear friends, Michael Anderson and Dave Giesel? That's what I want to talk about. Why would she go to such an extreme, which in my mind really is, afterwards she says, we want to remember our wonderful soldiers and blah, 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 blah. Isn't that kind of spitting in the face of the airmen and and she says the first responders? So let's say, the volunteers that were putting out the fires and pulling out the rubble and sewing back together the blown up people and the burned people and the broken bones and rebuilding, blah, blah, blah. And that kind of spitting in their face by equating all that with something that she absolutely stinking knows is a farce. Your thoughts?
Well, we talked about on the show before how World War I was just an economic fight between Britain and Germany.
Yeah.
Germany was overtaking Britain and made deals going back to the 1880s that would have made them the economic powerhouse of Europe. Britain didn't like that, so in short, they started World War I. And then you had the same issue with World War II, where Germany again is becoming an economic powerhouse, and Britain doesn't like it. And regardless of what someone thinks of Hitler and his policies, the big thing that England didn't like is the fact that Germany was gaining such a strong economic foothold when, especially after the Treaty of Versailles was intended to keep that from happening. And now you look at this. The European economy is not doing well. The interest rates are the lowest they've been in 5,000 years. They have negative interest rates in Europe, and one of the things that's being pushed, and it's being pushed by Goldman Sachs, which actually just pulled out of Alaska. Remember, I don't know if you saw the article in the paper this week or last week. Goldman Sachs has pulled all their investments out of Alaska oil projects, claiming it's environmentally irresponsible. Well, Goldman Sachs is the one. Goldman Sachs is the one pushing the green bonds, the environment.
Right.
And that's one of the hopes to try to save the euro. Is for Europe to invest in these green bonds. It's probably, they're a horrible idea. I don't know why they expect they're going to make any money off of it. But anyway, that's what they're trying to push this for. Is they're trying to save their economy with these green bonds based on a total farce. So again, it comes down to economics. I think that's the bottom line of it. It's always about fabricating stories and starting wars over economic dominance.
So
and then you use a holiday to try to inspire people into this farce.
What's in it for her, though? They're breaking Brexit. I mean, the euro shouldn't mean nothing to them.
Right, but they're still part of the European economy, as in trading. So,
but the worse the euro is off, the better their dollar is. Their pound.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny. And if you don't know, England is the worst country ever created. The worst. I tell all my children, what is the worst country ever created by mankind?
I thought Europe was the worst country.
Oh, Europe?
Just all of it, right?
No.
That's what Americans tell me.
Right. No, it's England. The monarchs of England, at least, are the worst people ever known to man. They have been destroying peace and goodwill and trade for hundreds and hundreds of years. If you read Conceived in Liberty, which is mostly, pretty much all about the beginnings of colonial America, and Volume 5 finally came out, thank goodness, which we'll be talking about that once I get it done read. Even years and years and hundreds of years ago when, you had the Silk Road, and that book goes back to the Marco Polo days, and, Europe was actually starting to pull out of, being completely destitute because everyone's poor. But trade started coming from the East, the Asian countries, and I'm gonna say the Oriental countries, because you're not supposed to say that anymore, so I thought I would. Coming from the Oriental countries, why is Oriental a bad word? I haven't figured that out. Anyways,
no one knows, because it refers to the Orient and the Occident are how you refer to East and West. That's what orientation means. It means to point in that direction. Anyway, yeah, destruction of language. That's why you're not supposed to use it.
Oh, okay. So I'll use it. So if you look back there, the Brits, while the good old Dutchies were building these fine, fast ships they could load down with goods, the Brits, who were doing just fine, decided, well, that's no fun. It's better to build warships and blow them up and steal their crap. That's a much better way of creating economy for our people, is to blow everyone up, steal their crap, and why, by golly, instead of trading with that country, let's just take them over and build a colony, and then we'll enslave them all, and they can work for us for free. I mean, why, I'm going off on a rocker here, but it's because it's important. People get mad at, sure, Germany, because they start, the whole Nazi thing. They're the bad guys. The Italians are bad guys. The Japanese imperialism. Now it's the Chinese, expansion. The Soviet Union. Fear the Russians. Saddam Hussein went into Kuwait and blah, blah, blah. The freaking British have been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. I mean, wasn't it in the 80s they got in a war with Argentina over Argentina's island that they conquered years ago, and they went to war over it? Mm-hmm. A block of crap. It's just a rock, but they wanted to go to war over it just to kill people. England is the worst. I suppose those are people that descended from those folks, good thing you're alive, but would have been a better thing if those monarchs would have never been. Just terrible. And the Queen, in good old fashioned cheerio, is keeping that alive. What do you think about it, Dave?
I think you nailed why they would use the climate change narrative. It's the same reason for the war over Iraq in Argentina. Mm-hmm. It's like global warming is way better than terrorism as far as a thing to fear. It's the ultimate. Mm-hmm. And so it makes sense that the most powerful would use it because it's the most powerful tool. It's an unsolvable problem that affects everyone across borders. Mm-hmm. So it makes your jurisdiction everyone on the planet. And it means there's no good side and bad side. There's only like, okay, with terrorism, let's say you live in Afghanistan and your village has been blown up. Pretty easy to see the downside of having your village blown up. Mm-hmm. So you have, beyond the, how would I say this? Even if you bought into the standard terrorist narrative, you could see how the families of the terrorists are affected negatively by the war. But with global warming, you get to say that everyone is affected negatively. So there's the people who are affected negatively who are wrong, and the people who are affected negatively who are right. It's slam dunk. That's why everybody's running with it. What'll be interesting to see is how long it takes for the dead horse beating. It's the boy who cried wolf, right? How long will it take for the narrative to lose its effectiveness?
Yeah, the Greta Thunberg thing that came up was last month or so. Where she's playing out an angry speech in front of the UN. You've destroyed my future and all of that. And then she becomes praised, and they put up murals of her around Europe. It's an attempt to make the anger spread, to bring it into other people's lives. Here's an angry young lady who's angry about something that's total nonsense, and we need to all emulate her and be angry also.
Do you guys think that she helped, was a little injection into the narrative?
As in an artificial injection?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. She was coached by one of the was it Greenpeace? One of the heads of Greenpeace.
I don't remember. Obviously by her parents.
Yeah. Interesting that I think it was a founder of Greenpeace that came out and said climate change is nonsense.
Oh, he's on Tom Wood's show a couple times.
Yeah.
And the first, I'll link it up here when I got a minute. The first time he was on the Tom Woods show was absolutely fascinating. Just, it was great. I think I listened to it two or three times in one sitting because it was so good. And this guy was amazing. And he's still a greenie. And it's not like, but not a radical.
Yeah.
Or a liar, I guess.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, I'm all for taking care of the environment.
Right.
But CO2 is not a death gas.
Right. That's like, Bastiat, when in some of his writings, he said, people say that because we're against public funds being used for education, we're against education, right? And because people say that we're against government coining money, whatever, we're against sound money, economic policy, and all this. It's saying, just because you're against the political climate change bullcrap narrative doesn't mean that you think you should, and we tease about it, burning plastic and torching a tire and stuff. Doesn't mean that we want to drink crap water and not be able to see 4 feet in front of us because there's so much smog.
And it doesn't mean we actually burn tires either.
Exactly. We just don't want, we're just countering, the extremities of the other side, basically, by being extreme ourselves. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that she had to, not surprised, but I was disappointed, even though I don't like the Queen, that she would. I didn't see any feedback back. I didn't see any pushback, except for Target Liberty. What? You're equating that a real life thing that happened. Let's just say you believe in climate change. In the narrative that she's giving, the extremeness of we're all going to die climate change stuff. Still, how could you compare that to your countrymen being blown up? I mean, that was a horrific time. We can discuss and libertarian away on a conversation about was the war necessary and who was at fault and when did it start and where did it happen and which are all good discussions for future not having wars, Treaty of Versailles, which is why there was a World War II, and among other things. But, the fact of the matter is it really did happen, and real people were killing other real people. It was a horrific time. That's why I still have such an interest in World War II. Not that, even on the American side, it's, I believe that the Americans absolutely knew the Japanese were coming, probably knew exactly when they were coming, all this stuff. They had the warning signs. And they were the reason that it happened because they were blockading Japan, trying to invoke an attack. But put all that aside, the real story is bombs are dropping out of the air and innocent people, it used to be that armies fought armies, and thanks to the American government actually is the government that changed all that, where everyone's open season. Killing civilians is fine. So, I don't know. It's just real people were dying. Real people aren't dying from climate change.
Imaginary future people are, though.
Right. Imaginary future people.
And the more hysterical the narrative, the more people buy into that. Like the difference between a real person from the past and an imaginary person from the future, I would bet in the mind of like a Gen Zer, like Greta Thunberg, is probably very small or non-existent. Or it's possible that the future person is even more real because they're telling children to project their dead selves into the future.
Right. Right. The future person is you. Themselves. The past person didn't happen to you. They're over.
Well, it was your patriarchal grandfather who deserved it anyway.
Right. That's a good point. Even though you wouldn't be alive without it. Yeah, right. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I just thought it was a shame.
Well, that's an excuse also used for public education, that our children are the future. Therefore, we need to spend ridiculous sums of money to indoctrinate them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing here. The future is our children. Therefore, we need to enact legislation and government force for an imaginary foe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if
I
just thought it was shameful.
Yeah.
Because
I have a story about that from Fairbanks, actually, about the children and the climate change. I was at earlier this summer. It might have been in June or something like that. I was at the pump house out on the deck. Oh no, this was fall. It was cold. This was in August or September. I was out on the deck with my buddy Corey, and we were just kind of goofing around. We made some goofy videos. We were editing videos on a laptop, having some seafood chowder, and these people came and sat down behind us and started talking. And I think it was 3 people at the table, and it was a school teacher, his friend, and then her husband or something like that. So two school teachers and then this other guy. And they got talking about humanity going to Mars and climate change, like all the future stuff people talk about, right?
Yeah.
And then one of the teachers, I think it was the guy, he made the following observation. He said, the kids in his class were so disheartened by the inevitability of the end of the planet in their lifetime that they weren't even interested in stuff like a colony on Mars, because they didn't think humanity would make it long enough. And even if they did, they would just screw up Mars too until it was uninhabitable, and then they would die there anyway. And so they weren't interested in doing anything about their immediate behavior, because their fate was already sealed, and they weren't interested in exploration of new places either, because of their view of even if you made a lifeboat and got somewhere else, you just destroyed the other place too. And these were like, I think he was a middle school teacher, he was saying. So these are like, kids between 11 and 15, depending on if it's a 6'7" or a 6'7", 8 or a 5'6", 7" or whatever. So like, these are kids who haven't even, they don't even have their driver's license, and they're already living out a full-on nihilist, stare into the abyss ideology at the age of 12, 13. And he's these were 2 public school teachers. They were, maybe from our perspective, you could say they were part of the system, but they weren't happy about it. They saw how detrimental it was, because let's say there is a problem, and let's say that it's solvable. The continual beatdown of this generation with how bad the problem is has made them believe that it's unsolvable. It's like overshoot, like they went too far on their narrative. And the other teacher jumped in and she said, oh yeah, it's the same with my kids. And it's basically universal. There's like, it's not like it's 10% of the class or something like that. It's like all the kids, when they talk about these big problems that will face your generation, they both said pretty much all the kids in their class just kind of shrug and go, yeah, get what you can while it's good.
Right. Which is definitely an overshoot, but you think, that as far as the state's concerned, never let a crisis go to waste. I mean, it just makes it all the more easier to be the savior, come riding in on a white horse, say, oh, look, I figured it out. Or, collectively, government figured it out. You're saved. Oh, love the God government. Thank you for saving us.
Yeah, you need the state to do it for you, but you don't see that the state is going to do it. Right.
It's just so ironic because the state is the biggest polluter in the world.
Well, actually, the U.S. military is the largest single polluter in the world. Yeah.
And they have to in order to save the planet.
Right.
Well, we had to get away from free market principles to save the free market.
Well,
You got it.
When you use that word nihilist, it reminded me of that was part of the Bolshevik Revolution. Was the nihilists in Russia? That they're the younger generation had the same ideas there. The same, I guess, lack of hope. And so they needed to push for a state to come and solve the problems. And, these kids grow up in an environment where, in public schools, where you need the state to solve the problems. And if the state's not solving the problems, then it won't get solved. And what do I have left? There is no philosophy of be the change. You yourself be the change.
Well, doesn't that make it more important for us to realize how important it is to give hope to people? I mean, because if you don't have, we've talked about this from day one, ever since I met you guys. What's your alternative? If you don't have an alternative to what's being the narrative they're giving, what they're teaching, then shut up. Who's going to listen to you if you don't have, since we started the show, guys, you've heard it from, especially earlier on, before we had the opportunity to really spell out what we're talking about. Oh yeah, well, what's your plan? How do you make it better? Who are you going to vote for?
Yeah.
What would have voted for?
Who are you going to vote for? That's the solution.
What law would you have put in?
My ballot is my revolution.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what and you guys know because I've told you a lot, was my problem with libertarianism from day one. Was, their solution, their explaining the solution was pretty crappy. And a lot of times it was in the form of Austrian economics, and it was all technical. And it's like, no one's freaking listening to you guys. No one's listening to you because it's just not working. You got to, what's the hope in that? And that's why I loved Hans Hoppe's deal that we talked about last winter with how he brought in the 10 Commandments into his libertarianism, and the structure around that, the hope around that. If we don't have something better to offer, then why should they listen? My kids, they don't believe in climate change at all. Well, outside,
outside natural cycles, right? Yeah.
Right. But I'm sure they have friends that do. Well, they probably don't. They don't really like people very much. But I'm sure they know people that believe in it, and being able to explain, be ready to give an account for the hope that lies within you. It's extremely important. And whoever has the best story at the end of the day is going to be the one that wins over. I guess we'll always have the naysayers that follow the state because it's so prevalent. That's why I think that the biggest success story for Americans to believe in freedom would be for the public education system to be gone. But, our story's got to be better than theirs. And they don't. The problem with their side of it, Dave, and I think you nailed it, is they did go overboard. There's no hope in their situations. They don't even, even when OAC's talking or whatever, she gives us 12 years. Well, 12 years till what? We're all going to be extinct in 12 years if we don't change something. Well, are we going to be just a little bit better off than extinction?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is so dramatic about it. There's no in between. It's either we're all perfectly alive and doing well, or we're all dead. And anyone who thinks about that's got to think, well, that can't be. There's got to be a middle ground in there that we're not all dead in 12 years from climate change, but we're back to the Stone Ages, barely living. I don't know.
Here's an interesting silver lining. By the time the Greta Thunbergs of the world are of an age where they quote unquote participate in the system, they will have gone through another 30 years of nothing happening.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be how aligned with the mainstream opinion do you think that entire generation will be when that time comes about?
Yeah.
They'll have lost all credit. They'll have lost the the mainstream media, but whatever, the establishment, whatever that is, will have lost all credibility for an entire generation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be pretty great.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really good point.
Well, yeah, and there's a project in the news recently. It was ocean cleanup. It was created by, well, at the time it was founded by a 19-year-old. I mean, he's same age as these high schoolers who think they have no future, right? So get what you can. So he founded this company to develop technology to extract ocean from or plastics from the ocean garbage patch,
mm-hmm.
like the one in the Pacific. And so they've just recently deployed their first ship. So all these guys that think they're down, they're nihilist about what can we do? We're doomed. Well, here's one guy who went and created an ocean cleanup project.
Yeah, I see their ads on Instagram all the time.
Yeah. So
they pick up a lot of crap.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, if it's a matter of knowing how to network with people and find funding and to sell your idea, but they don't teach that in schools.
Right. No, because
there's plenty of people who would want to go out and do that.
You're talking about market ideas that we're going to do something rather than a state idea that does nothing but continue the despair.
Mm-hmm.
Because despair is when people need something.
Yeah.
Despair is when they look for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, the whole thing, there's no atheist in foxholes. Why? Because when you're in that foxhole, that's when you're like, I hope there's a God.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the way the state works is, yeah, there is a God. We're here. We'll create all these horrible narratives. Be afraid. Fear, fear, fear. We're here for you, though.
Right. But the ones who actually make the change are the individuals who go out and just decide to be the change, do their thing. Actually, your brother Aaron, he posted something on Facebook. I saw it was the creator of a game, Fortnite. It's a video game.
Mm-hmm.
He's rich, so he went and he bought thousands and thousands of acres of untouched forests, so they would remain untouched because there's a lot of rare plant species that he wants to keep preserved. So he used his capitalist money that he earned, and he went and bought the land, bought the plants in order to preserve them.
How is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad, and also it's another reminder for folks that do have a hope in them to be on the positive side of things, for the most part. Can't go around being a Scroogey, grumpy goose all the time and people don't want to listen to that either. They'll listen to fear for some reason because they want hope, and it's easy to believe in fear, but they don't really want to listen to grump. You know, no one's turning on. Well, unless, I was going to say, even the conservative talk show guys, they work on fear pretty much. The liberal talk show hosts, I think the reason why they never made it anywhere, their shows always go down the toilet, it's because they're always grumpy. They're mad about everything. They hate everything. Rah, rah, rah. Oh yeah, rah. None of them make it. Or the Republican guys, they're smart. They just work on fear. The liberals are gonna get you. Liberals gonna get you. And you can see it in a lot of the progressives' faces. I mean, they're just sourpusses. It comes out of their face. It comes through their pores, their ugliness. They just look nasty.
Kind of angry about their own dissatisfaction with their lives. So they have to create subgroups to blame it on, like the patriarchy or
and it projects out of them, so that people just don't want to listen to it.
Yeah, or say, white privilege, things like that. Yeah, and people just don't relate to it.
Yeah.
There's another problem with that strategy, with it being a short-term strategy. There's this guy, David Goggins, who's been on Joe Rogan a couple times, and his sort of claim to fame is that he's sort of a talentless nobody who decided to do a bunch of hard things, and through kind of sheer force of will was able to do a bunch of them. And he has a 24-hour pull-up record, and he's done a bunch of these ultra marathon events and stuff like that. And his least favorite activity in the world is running, and that's why he took up ultra marathons, because he absolutely hates running. So he's like, that's what I need to overcome. Anyway, he talks about relentlessness, and people ask him, like, how could you, when you heard that the 24-hour pull-up record is, 4,100 pull-ups in a day or whatever, what went through your mind? And he's like, it's easy. The first thing went through my mind was 4,100 divided by 24 hours divided by 60 minutes in an hour. How many pull-ups a minute do I have to do? How much rest time do I have? And people are like, how could you go there? And he says, with anything, when you face anything daunting, the only way to guarantee your failure is to start by assuming it's not possible. You have to start by assuming that solving whatever you're setting out to do is possible, because all of the ways to solve the problem exist inside of that perspective. You'll never find a way to solve a problem if you've decided it's impossible. And then he infers from that. He talks about how weak the current generation is. He says the current generation is so soft that they can't even be. The first time they get talked to about something, they stop doing it. The first time they're corrected or told no or told they could do it a different way or whatever, they just stop. They say, well, fine. If I can't do it perfect the first time, then there's no point even trying. And he says that's an outgrowth of this lack of relentlessness and trained hopelessness, is that these people become soft in all aspects of their life. Now, what's interesting is, despite the seeming dichotomy between the ruling class or whatever and the regular people, if the entire population becomes a bunch of people who roll over at the first sign of anything difficult, well, those people end up becoming your boots on the ground, so to speak. And so at some point, the weakness of the society undermines the weakness of the ruling structure, because the ruling structure has to use them parasitically to achieve their ends. So it's a short-term play. Like, the whole thing is a short-term play.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it that Goggins talks about is, if you have any mental fortitude at all, and you're under the age of 40 or 50 or whatever, you can clean up because there's no competition. There's no competition for people who are relentless. If you can develop, yeah.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to ask you that very question. Isn't this doesn't that create an opportunity for people that don't fall down that path?
Yeah, exactly. It increases the power of the minority is multiplied because the power of the majority is being divided. It's a fraction of what it used to be because the majority viewpoint is one of powerlessness, and so it becomes self-fulfilling.
Yeah, so there's a severe scarcity of the of those who are relentless.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Less than ever, and there's never very many, but there's like none right now.
Yeah.
So that's actually another silver lining.
Opportunity. But there's a lot of people. There's plenty of people out there to tell the relentless one who has a good idea, oh, it's not going to work. It just can't be done, right?
Yes, for sure. And that can be flipped to be a positive. Like when I've started, just personally, when I've started encountering stuff in the technical work that I do, that looks insurmountable, I've started embracing it as a positive because as soon as I've worked through that, I've gotten through something that all of my competition is going to stop when they get to. They're going to hit this thing and they're going to go, this can't be done. And so the more of those I work through, the further the distance between my product and their product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the same with these ideas, like the ideas that we're talking about. And, Jeff Berwick, who's on the show, stuff he's talking about. The more relentless that we are, the bigger the bigger the hope gap between the standard message and the message we have, and the bigger the actual results, the gap in the results. Because if your message is encouraging, people are going to move forward with courage, and then they're going to accomplish what they need to. They're going to overcome what they need to.
Well, and that's what real leadership is too, right? Not the fear. I've never considered inducing fear into people as being a leader, and that's easy. It's just too easy. It's basic. Leadership is, we can do it. We get her done. I'll show you how. I won't just tell you. The best leaders are always the ones that lead the way by showing. But it's Berwick, what he would say, and plenty of people have, is an opportunity to gain wealth. And it's, not like we want to just talk about that all the time, but it certainly sure is. Because just like you're saying, Mike, the scarcity of having relentlessness, the scarcity, competition. There's no competition. There's less and less competition for people that want to succeed.
Which you go back to the Queen making her statements, climate change, and it's going to doom us. Why does the state do that? Create the people who are scared, and then be the one who is robust. And then,
but like Dave said, when your followers are all the weaklings that are scared, it doesn't work out for you eventually. But we got to hit the break. David, thank you for joining us, sir. You have a great day. Yeah. If you see my daughter, say hi to her.
Will do.
All right. We'll be right back, folks. This is Patriot Cement.
Jane Metzler, Fox News. The plane went down near the airport in Lafayette. At least 5 people killed.
Police in the town of Lafayette say a twin-engine plane took off from the town's airport, crashed about a mile away near a post office and a Walmart supercenter. Lafayette is about 59 miles from Baton Rouge, 135 miles from New Orleans. We're told 6 people were on board this small plane.
Fox's Ed Henry. It is now 9 a.m. in Hawaii, where the search will resume, weather permitting, for the 7th person on a tour helicopter that crashed on the top of a mountain in Kauai. The bodies of 6 have been found so far. No indications anyone could have survived that crash. It is now raining in the area. Visibility is limited because of cloud cover. Families of the victims have been notified. 2 of the passengers on board children. A winter storm that closed interstate highways in Southern California moved on to the southwest, bringing heavy snow to higher elevations there. Ice and blizzard conditions now expected in parts of the Midwest.
As it moves off towards the north, that's where we're seeing the colder air, and that's where we'll see the snow. Some spots, maybe 6 to 10 inches or so across parts of the Dakotas, and very windy.
Fox meteorologist Rick Reich mused freezing rain icing up roads as well. The storm heading to the northeast in time for New Year's. President Trump still in Florida, continuing his 2-week working vacation. And he was busy on Twitter earlier today, criticizing House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and addressing the homeless problem in California and New York, questioning the competence of the Democratic governors of both states. One former Republican congressman responding, "Dude, just golf today. America is listening to Fox News."
Aaron Seekins Ford.
Get the best price of the year on the best-selling brand in Alaska. Ford and Seekins Ford, up to 20% savings on brand new Ford vehicles, all built tough for Alaska. F-Series, Expedition, Explorer, Edge, Escape, and more. Let us show you how to get the best prices of the year. If you are even thinking of a new vehicle, don't miss out. Give yourself a really happy holiday. This deal ends January 3rd. It's right here, right now at Seekins Ford. See you here.
Hello, this is Ward Murdy's. More than 20 years of helping Alaskans smeared in automobile accidents, and the families of Alaskans killed in car crashes have taught us a few things. Get a seasonal tune-up. You'll be counting on your car to get you home safely this season. Do yourself a favor and get a tune-up. Ask your mechanic to help you drive safely. Take his or her advice. Prepare your car and truck for the season driving now. The Murdy's Law Firm has helped injured Alaskans for more than 20 years. It's who we are. And while we hope you never need us, we're here if you do.
People join Walk MS to raise awareness and funds that change the world for everyone affected.
Ice fishing is a heck of a lot of fun for the whole family, but you have to be prepared. And the place you get prepared is Frontier Outfitters, where you'll find the rods, reels, and tackle you need. You'll also find a variety of augers, snowshoes, winter boots, and clothing, and your license as well. If you need snow machine and ATV accessories, they're right downstairs at Century Hardware. Your next outdoor adventure begins with Frontier Outfitters for your Alaskan lifestyle. Frontier Outfitters in the Gavora Mall.
Some captivity is mine. The mourns and lonely exile until the Son of God appears.
Times to give the law. In cloud and and give them victory on the grave. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to thee, oh
I hope people are listening on 97.5, not AM. All right, welcome back to Patriot Cement. My name is Josh Bennett. Dave had to drop off, but still got Mr. Mike Anderson. If you don't know, this band's called Theocracy. You can only get the music, the Christmas music, on YouTube, unfortunately. I think Spotify has some of it, I guess, but I've never been able to find. I think I found one on iTunes. It's good. They know how to make Christmas music, brighten it up a little.
Oh, come out and spring and cheer our spirits by thy night.
I went and saw the Star Wars movie.
Oh, dude.
Gloomy clouds of
Something good?
Yes.
and temptations
It's good.
born to flight.
Guess who written? No, can't tell you.
Rejoice!
I know something that you don't know. Yeah, it was. It was pretty good. Kind of sad. And it's kind of sad because it's like there goes 42 years of my life. Finally came to a conclusion.
So that's the last one they're making?
As far as the Star Wars story, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. They're gonna make some offshoots, like I guess Disney's making that Mandalorian series.
Oh, okay.
Disney Plus.
Is that the Baby Yoda meme I keep seeing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mandalorians, they're the Boba Fett dudes. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. But they're gonna make a Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know if it's gonna be a movie or a series, which I don't know what that's gonna be like. It's gonna be sitting in a cave for years.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They're supposed to make a Darth Vader either movie or series. I hope it's not a series. But it would be nice if they'd make like 3 Darth Vader movies of him just going around and killing people like crazy. He's the one bad guy I love. I love Darth Vader. Oh, so I don't know why.
Wish you could be Darth Vader.
You love Darth Vader. He's so awesome. Even though he's evil. And I guess maybe it's because he turns at the end, of his life. But yeah, there's something about that.
Or is it because of the cape?
I think it's because he's so powerful. And you see that in that movie Rogue One at the very end. He kind of dilly-dallies in most of the movies. He kicks some butt when he's fighting Luke, though. But in Rogue One, he's going in there and he's just all by himself, just destroying that whole ship. I love it. So a good movie with him, that'd be cool. But yeah, the Star Wars saga, the Skywalker saga, has come to an end. Sad day for mankind. Pretty good, though. I go see it. Let's hit the call. Hello, caller. You are up. Thanks for calling.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
This is Rattles out in Pleasant Valley.
How are you doing today?
The place where we still wait with all 5 fingers. Well, I got a little information for the listeners. Well, for one thing, you guys were talking about global warming there. Well, Al Gore wasn't around when the Ice Age melted off, I'll tell you that. Well, here's what. On New Year's Eve at 4:20, Billy Blizzard died.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to let everybody know he won't be calling in. He left there 4:20, New Year's Eve. Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
I want to thank Lee for going and seeing him over there at the hospital too. Lee came in there. Good, Lee. Thank you. I've worked with Billy for many years, surveying all over the place. I know Bill since 1982. He's one of my best friends. We got along very good for many, many years. What a character he was.
Definitely was that.
Man, I can tell you some far out stuff. Well, he's quite the character he was. I want to tell you, he was just a little fella, tougher than nails. Like a little bulldog. He's a powerful little fella. He could really run too. He really liked playing ball. He was really good at it.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yep, he was. Yeah. He could run. He'd get in them, they got this old age Olympic thing they hold in town there somewhere. He'd go in there every year and outrun everybody in his class.
Well, I'll miss him calling in for sure.
We were working down there in Denali, putting up that, surveying that whole mountainside off for that Grand Denali Hotel that's perched up there in that rock. Well, that was real steep going up that mountain. I mean, real steep. Well, one day, the owner down there, he says, Bill, he goes, I'm going to give you guys a pair of Sherpas. Two young guys. These guys climbed Denali. No, they did, yeah. Well, Billy and I were heading up the mountain there. We're loaded up with freight, right? I got the chainsaws, tool bags, and fuel jugs, and Billy's carrying surveying equipment. We got these 2 other guys carrying stuff, and we get way up in that hill. There's an outcropping of rock that makes a flat spot at this one place, and we stopped right there. We set our stuff down there. We're getting a little breather there. We're looking down the mountain, Billy and I. These guys are coming up. And they finally got up there to where we're set there. Billy goes, all right, you guys. He goes, then you put all that stuff right down here. He said, you go back down to the hotel and go do the dishes. He said, you can't stay after me and him here. We're men from Earth. These 2 young guys couldn't stay after Bill and I. And they climbed Denali. And Bill and I loaded up heavy with stuff. And I'm going to tell you, that was steep. I had to be tied off at places to cut. I had to be tied off with a rope. It was that steep. Yeah. Couldn't lay your saw down and take off downhill. Billy and I worked all over the place. Down at Missile Defense, Eielson, you name it, all over. Billy surveyed the pipeline. Yeah. I told him the other week, and Bill said, you're the only guy I know that surveyed your own graveyard, your own burial lot. He surveyed the whole cemetery out here in Pleasant Valley here a few years ago, and that's where he's going to be stuck over there. Yep. So Bill won't be calling us no more.
No, he was a good guy. It was fun to listen to.
Oh, definitely. Yep. He was really good. So they'll be having some kind of a wing ding out here at the community center sooner or later here. I just don't know when.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope you all attend.
Do you know who's going to put that out, or
not yet? It's a little early yet.
Yeah.
Is that intended to be just a family thing, or are they opening that
No,
up?
heck no. They don't have an open wing ding,
Okay.
They don't have a potlatch.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Will you let us know when it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, you got his phone number, don't you?
Yep.
Well, He's not going to answer, but somebody will.
Okay.
His wife, she's got her hands full right now, big time. So
right.
You know, and there she is. She lives alone there at the house, and they get wood heat, and she have to haul water, and his well went to hell, and that don't work right, and it's no good water right there anyhow. So she has to haul water and stuff like that, and wood, and you name it. And through the neighborhood here, go down there and make sure they got everything right. They got wood and water. So
didn't he have one son at home still?
Yeah, he has two sons. One's Bill, and the other's Wilson. William and Wilson. Okay. And the one's in military school down in Anchorage. I just seen him the other day. He was home here. And Billy was there too. So the one son's at home there right now, and with his mother. So she's not alone.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's got her hands full.
Yeah.
So I won't be going out surveying with Billy anymore. I'm going to miss that episode.
Well, maybe you can go up and help survey some mansions in the sky.
Yeah. Me and him was all over surveying. You want to hear a little story?
Sure. Sure.
One day this old lady calls Billy up. Well, I need you to come over here and survey my lot. She says, I think my neighbor's encroaching on my property. And Billy goes, well, how long's that been going on? Well, she says, 4 years or more. Oh, yeah. So we go over to this lady's place, and it's back in the cul-de-sac, and everything back there's in a big circle. So all the property owners back there own a piece of pie, right? Cut out like pie. So I get out of the truck. I'm looking around there for some survey markers. Can't find much. I get out the wand, looking with the electric stick for buried metal, right? Looking for a survey hub. Right. Then I find one. Cleared the top of it off, and Billy gets out the equipment, sets up on it, right? Then we're checking things out there, and Billy has me putting lath in, setting lath right across the middle of the neighbor's lawn, right through the middle of this fella's lawn.
A little bit of an encroachment.
Every year, this guy's been mowing a little more of the weeds down on her property side, and turning into his lawn. And Billy says to her, he says, no, we got that surveyed off, right? And I'm looking at that and going, oh my gosh, that guy really encroached on her property, didn't he? Right? Well, we got that job done, and Billy goes into the house to talk to the old gal. And he says to her, look, ma'am, he says, the first thing you need to do is tomorrow call the fence company up, and you put a fence right down through the middle of his yard there where them lamps are there. Right? That'll make a statement and a half, right?
Yep.
I said to Bill, look, I'm loading up the stuff in the truck here. I said, I want to get out of here before the neighbor comes home. He goes, yeah, ain't a bad idea. Well, I'm packing up the stuff in the truck, and here the neighbor comes home. Oh, boy, you should have heard him yelling. He had a fit and a half. Then Billy had to tell him where to fly, trying to steal the neighbor's land. After 7 years, you can lay claim to it if it's not contested. See,
right?
So, yep. I guess the next day she put a fence right across that guy's lawn. But yeah, we didn't make it out of there in time. Then we had a fiasco going with the neighbor. Oh, so one time down at Fort Greeley, we're down there. They just started the missile defense system. We're out there on the frontage. We're surveying. And I'm looking up there at the main gate. That used to always be an open post. But then when they made it missile defense, then they put the guards in the shack and stop everybody, search everybody. Well, I'm looking up there. I looked up there at that flag flying at the gate there. Thought that don't look quite right. That looks like a piece of junk. I said to Billy, turn that transom around and look at that flag up there. What is that? He looks up there and goes, it's a printed piece of crap made in China. Well, that evening I come home the next morning. I called up Senator Ted's office and told him about the printed flag flying down the missile defense. that was changed the next day. Put up a sewn flag after that, made USA. That's your government for you, huh?
Sounds about right.
Gee, couldn't believe they had a printed flag up there instead of a sewed flag. That missile defense.
Saving money.
Yeah, put a U.S. citizen out of work.
Well, we appreciate you letting us know about that. It's bad news, but if you would, if you find out when they're going to have the remembrance for him, if you give us a shout next week, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know when they're going to hold it, but it'll probably be out here. Yeah, years ago, Billy says, yeah, when I die, he goes, tell Polly to sing at my memorial service. Well, Polly don't live out here no more for a long time. Oh, all right, you guys, now have yourself a good day. Now everybody knows Billy went away.
Yeah.
Yep, he went on to the next realm. He left his survey equipment lay here, so he's probably got another job. All right, later.
All right, thank you. If you do want to join us, our number is 907-458-8255. Sounds like Mr. Bill Blizzard, passed away on Christmas Eve. But stay tuned, because maybe next week we'll know when they're, I guess they're going to have a remembrance or something for him, and we will, if we have the information, we'll let people know. Sounds like it's going to be open for everyone, friends and family. It's too bad. All right. Mike, I'm going to go back to a little bit what we were talking about in the first hour, but to expand on it a little bit. I was talking about the Queen.
Okay.
And she was comparing the Battle of Britain again to climate change, right? We discussed that fairly well, I think. And I was looking, the first thing I read was how she said that her family and her are inspired by the men and women of the emergency services and armed forces. And at Christmas, we remember all those on duty, blah, 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 blah. And, how ridiculous that statement is when her first statement is the challenges many people face today are different to those my generation faced. But she's struck by how the new generations have brought a similar sense of purpose to the issue of protecting the climate and climate change. A similar sense of purpose. And the first hour there, folks, if you didn't listen, we were talking about how ridiculous that is to compare the Battle of Britain, and to me, it's like a slap in the face. The small force of dudes that were on call 24 hours a day and went up fighting to protect their country and their countrymen against the odds were very overwhelming. 4 pilots to go up against 40 ships coming in. And they prevailed eventually. Pretty much knocked out the Luftwaffe by themselves. Wasn't much left when they finally decided, this isn't working out. And so what I'm saying about that, when she gives a little platitude of how she's inspired by the men and women in the armed forces, it reminded me of how let's take a phone call, Mike. Okay. Because once we get rolling, you know how that goes.
Okay.
Hello, caller, you're up next.
Oh, caller?
Yes, sir.
Hang on, I'm trying to coordinate. Hang on.
Hey, I hear me.
They're looking at your video, and it's not corresponding with the telephone. So there's some kind of a delay.
No, there's a delay on the YouTube.
You can edit some of this out, right?
Nah, we're good.
Just listening into all your stuff here. Climate. Does anyone remember where climate comes from? What's your recollection?
Where climate comes from?
Yeah.
The word or the...
No. What is the climate? Climate's that stuff that flies around in the air, hot and the cold.
You mean I don't know, air, water?
Creator?
Ah.
What did Jesus have power over?
The climate.
He could make the storm settle, couldn't he? Right. Wind and the waves obey him. What's everybody afraid about anyway? They think he's going to come back and mess things up. Hey, let's get on that subject.
I don't worry about it at all because I don't think mankind can destroy the world.
No, I don't. I think it's, the angels, when they're told to go out there and mess us up a little bit, they just go out there and do it, as far as what I see. And when we don't have none, they can't say thing one about it, can we?
Right.
So, you know how much power is in it. I've got a picture of this hurricane. I don't know why it fascinates me, but this hurricane that hit Houston, was it last year or year before?
2 years ago?
Yeah, I got a picture of it on my refrigerator over here. I got it in Time magazine. Huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I found somebody that calculated the amount of energy that was in that. How many hydrogen bombs was in that one hurricane that sat there? And it was some astronomical figure. Can't even remember how many. But there's no way anything man could do to affect that much energy.
Right.
It's like trying to raise or lower the ocean. It's just not possible. Anyway, I wonder why people lose those perspectives of things and start worrying about stuff that they can't control or will never be able to. But the season, peace on earth, goodwill to men. That's a good subject, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a subject to, like, who would know a lot more about that? Maybe the oldest. I think Paul was 90. I think he would probably know the most about what peace was. But no matter what you do in life, so these people, they want to go to Mars. What's going to happen when you put a bunch of people on a ship going to Mars and you lose your peace? What's going to happen? You're going to self-destruct, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you've lost the point of even trying to take a group of people over to Mars if you can't keep peace in your head and you can't keep peace between each other. Where are you going to be able to go? So that applies here on Earth too. So peace on Earth, goodwill to men. So peace is something important. That's the point I think I'm getting to. So if we took a subject of this and say, okay, well, what is this peace thing? This word that is used in the English language and probably other languages too. Let's see some things we know about it. Maybe you can just throw in here with some of this too. It's an experience, isn't it? Isn't it a personal experience?
Yeah.
Can you experience peace for me?
I hope not.
No. It's not like a piece of Tootsie Roll. I can cut a piece of my piece off and give it to you, and then you have the piece. Doesn't work that way, does it?
Yeah.
So it comes from somewhere, and we don't have to go into big, long discussions about it. But one thing's for sure, if you've got it, and you've got it strong, and you're experiencing it, then what do you experience in your life? That's a question. In other words, you either got it or you don't, right?
Right.
Isn't that how it is?
Yep.
So regardless of where it comes from and who gave it to you and what you have to do to get it, it's there. And if it's there, you know it, don't you? Yeah. There's different kinds of peace. You can look at those aspects of it. Peace on earth, goodwill to men is something that sounds like during this season people are looking for. I don't know why they just want to look at it around Christmas time. It seems like something that you want to look at every day, 365 days a year. It seems to be just this season here. Is this the only season that you see this?
Yep.
And that's the Christmas music and the rubber bumpy song. What's that thing with the drummer guy?
Little drummer boy?
Yeah.
I play it year round myself.
Oh, do you?
Absolutely.
Wow.
I say Christmas stops at July 31st and starts August 1st.
Starts August 1st?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ends July 31st.
Anyway, peace. What do we know? We know peace is one of the, I think it's the third fruit of the Spirit, right, out of Galatians.
Love, joy, peace.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I don't know, lots of looking up you can do with the word peace. So, but the important thing is where it resides, isn't it? It's where it lives, where it is right now, where it fits in your head. And do you know the three kinds of peace?
Nope.
Okay. I guess I'm gonna have to let you look for those yourself. Anyway, bottom line, it's experience. You can experience it in all different ways, in all different times. But one thing's for sure, it's something that you remember and it you appreciate. So if you've been without it for a long time, you can appreciate it when you got it. And particularly toward the end of your life, I think you think more about it. But it's important throughout your life. If you've got a lot of it, you're not going to be doing anything to harm yourself or others, are you?
I hope not.
No.
No, you couldn't. You wouldn't be able to.
No, it would stop you, wouldn't it?
Right.
It would stop you from destroying yourself. It would stop you from doing a lot of things. So, I think that's an important thing. I think something that individuals have to address, because corporately, you or no one else can transfer anything like that around. We can stop wars. We can do little acts of kindness and things, but we can't impart peace. We can wish it, but that's about it, right?
Right. Inner peace.
Inner peace, yeah. Well, the inner peace is important, but you still, not just the inner peace, you need the kind of stuff that goes around you, too. You got family, you got friends, you want to have peace going around as much as possible. It's not enough just for yourself. That's helpful for yourself.
Well, if you do have inner peace, though, for real, wouldn't you project it?
Yeah, you can, but you can't transfer it.
No.
If you can experience, if you walk up to me and said, Lord's peace be with you, well, it won't automatically transfer from me to you.
Right.
But it's stating my state of mind, and maybe putting you at peace with my state of mind. Maybe something like that. But
well, it can be contagious. How about that?
Could be, yeah.
Just like being irrational or fearful or warmongering, all that kind of stuff. That's contagious too.
Like affect you. You're contagious. You're speaking like affect, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a little situation we had. I think it was my medic, and it was kind of a lull in the fighting, but he was a conscientious objector medic in a recon squad with me, and he was sitting there, and we didn't chat very much because he chatted to me. I said, well, how are we gonna defend ourselves if you don't have a gun, you don't fire a gun, you're not going to protect us? And he says, he told me something himself that revealed the peace that was within him. And that kind of transferred to me. I was armed to the teeth. And I was pretty well prepared to use everything I had. But his peace within him kind of got transferred over to me. I just felt it. I don't know. We were sitting in the middle of no place. Probably not expecting to live very long, but yet he had that in his head, and he was able to transfer that feeling to me. That was just one little tiny little instant a long time ago, half a century ago. But we can do that with each other probably in this lifetime, if we get the opportunity. We can do something like that. But it's got to reside in us first, I think, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You think you got to have it before you can pass it on?
Can't share what you don't got.
Yeah, that's true. But as far as important things in life, I would probably rank that as probably item 1 in prayer or something like that. Either achieving it or thanking him for it, one of the two. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men.
With whom he is well pleased.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the end of my subject. I think it's the only thing I think it's worth listening to right now. So I'll just sign off and continue watching with the others.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for calling in.
Bye.
We got one more here. Our number is 907-458-8255 if you want to join us. Hello, call. You're up next.
Hey, morning, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, listen, I'm going to try and help clarify a few things that I've been hearing, but especially on climate change. It's pretty obviously what we're seeing out in the world is the new term climate refugee. For years they've been pushing political refugees, war refugees, people seeking asylum status, and today it's people coming from deserts. Like, hey, they're having a rough time in Chad because it's a desert, so we need to take them as climate refugees. And so they use the useful idiots, Greta Thunberg, AOC, they push this green status. You see it at the AFN conference where the younger kids and the native corporations, basically folded ASRC right out of AFN over a climate issue. But it's big business in Alaska. Everybody's moving villages right now. The Army Corps of Engineers are moving 3 or 4 villages at the price of $18 million. They push a lot of indigenous hunts for the sympathy issue, and even when you look on your guys' webpage today, you see it. There's a census father, whale captain, census taker. They're really pushing that there's not enough whales and not enough indigenous hunts, and we need to move villages, and it creates a sympathy off of climate change.
Right.
But at the same time, this is real. That there are CO2 events that have happened that have just absolutely killed North America, including the Younger Dryas event. This was a CO2 event that's still not been explained. It killed all the megafauna. It killed whatever people were here, and it absolutely spanked North America. It happened. It's real science, but most Alaskans deny it because it is a CO2 event, and it kind of denies the Beringia theory of people migrating onto North America versus North America getting destroyed at this time. So there are events that humans have done that you can look at that created climate change. In the 80s, they're talking about the hole in the ozone layer. That was the big scare when I was a kid, and most people were. They blamed it on chlorofluorocarbons and aerosol sprays getting into the atmosphere. But at the same time, you can pull up a video from 1962 when they shoot starfish prime off in the atmosphere over Antarctica. And they blow a hole in the ozone layer with a nuclear blast. So people have questioned for years whether that hole in the ozone layer is really from CFCs or if it was from starfish prime. There are massive events that humans have the capability of doing that can change the climate. The one we're seeing in Alaska is basically these Russian icebreakers showed up in 2010, and now we have 15 of them. As we talk, there's 40 million horsepower pushing against the ice up here in the Arctic Ocean right now, guys. They break the ice between the Atlantic and the Pacific. They create an artificial flow. And each of these icebreakers is a twin reactor. There's 2 reactors dumping hot water behind them. 2012, they opened up the Northwest Passage, and ever since then, you see a lot of weather change in Alaska and on the coasts. And a lot of that can be attributed directly to the Northwest Passage being opened by these nuclear-powered icebreakers. So these things do exist right in everybody's face, and they deny them.
What was the first one that you said when North America? How did that?
The Younger Dryas event?
Yeah, how did that come
You know,
about?
there's three different theories on this right now, and a lot of it is probably a large meteor impact created it. Some people think it hit Greenland. Some people think it was the York meteor shower that kind of sprayed over North America. Some people think there was an impact in Crater Lake, and it created a large CO2 event from Mount Mazama. And a lot of hardcore geologists have been studying this for years, and nobody's really gotten to the bottom of it yet. But the Younger Dryas event is a real event, and it was a CO2 event that just destroyed North America.
Well, I had thought, I heard you wrong. I thought you'd said that people had done that.
No.
I was like,
No. But in theory, the thing that changed climate the most between ice ages, going from, the maximum ice ages to our last ice age, was basically the Panama Strait lifting out of the ocean and stopping flows between the Atlantic and the Pacific. When that happened, North Africa dried out and turned into a desert. It changed the entire climate of all of Europe and the Mediterranean and the whole North Atlantic. And in theory today, if they were to open that land bridge back up, I mean, you could change the weathering pattern on the entire planet, with one nuclear explosion situated right there in that strait. So humans do have the capability to change weather at any time. One CO2 event that nobody looks at is the North Slope. They do take CO2 and pump it back into the ground and sequester CO2. There are technologies that are coming about to actually use CO2 to release hydrate gas, oil, migrate oil, things of that nature. And I've heard you guys talk in the past on wells on the slope producing oil after years of sitting still and vacant, right?
Can you say that last part again? Mike was saying something to me.
And I've heard you guys talk on some wells on the North Slope that they have looked back into that will flow oil after years of sitting capped, right?
Yeah.
And they do this because they pump seawater. It's not really a natural pooling oil event as much as, they're pumping massive amounts of seawater 24/7 on the North Slope. When they first started drilling on the North Slope, the permafrost was 1,800 feet thick. And today in some places it's 1,300, 1,200. Eventually, when you pump enough seawater under the ice, you're going to melt the ice underneath it. That's what seawater does. Seawater also makes hydrogen sulfide gas.
Well, at some point, though, they actually drill up palm trees and stuff like that up there. At some point in time,
in the Colville River, it goes all the way down to the Jurassic period down there. You can almost drill up dinosaur parts in the bottom of that thing. It's the Watmay origin. It's some of the oldest rock on Earth, and that's why you get so much of the carbonaceous period in there, for sure. But when they migrate oil, they pump in seawater, and eventually that's going to come back and haunt everybody, on the slope. And so you got to weigh the price on, if it's worth it economically now to do some things, sequester CO2, pump seawater, versus what's going to happen in another 20, 30, 50 years on trying to fix some of those issues. All the hydrogen sulfide gas on the slope is man-made. There's no natural hydrogen sulfide. They pump in seawater. The seawater has bacteria. It sits in a hot anaerobic environment. It makes hydrogen sulfide. They've created it.
Right, but there had to have been some kind of climate change happen for the trees and stuff that they dig up there thousands of feet down to that not being there anymore. Now,
and it's happened time and time again. Obviously the Jurassic period, when the dinosaurs lived, they had a cataclysmic event that burned everything into carbon, basically. And then since then, we've had other events. Most of the mammoth bones that they find in Alaska were all laid in one event. Something killed these things at one time. For years, they try to say it was humans hunting them to extinction, but they've never found a mammoth kill site in Alaska. These animals up here probably died 30 to 40,000 years ago in a couple, probably volcanic events. And sometimes volcanic events are CO2 events. So CO2 is really a dangerous thing on any scale.
I guess I'm just asking that the events I'm asking about happen naturally, And you're saying that now they're happening by man-made, but
you can't
there's
have
been lots of events that have already happened, but it's just happened.
You know, North America has been changing nonstop for 13,000 years now. So, you know, there's a nonstop issue that we've been dealing with, but there's also some man-made issues out there, you know, and especially the Arctic Ocean. When you crush the ice between the Atlantic and the Pacific and you create a water passage where those oceans are now connected, it's going to change the climate on some scale. You know, when it rains in January and a lot of the weather patterns are shifting, some of these could be man-made. You know, these Russian icebreakers are exerting more force on the Arctic than any other machine on Earth. You know, these are 14 of the most powerful machines humans have ever built, crushing the Arctic ice 24/7. You know, there's been a lot of change that's come off of that, and people will look the other way and deny it, but you got to think each of these ships have 2 reactors dumping hot water.
Right.
You know,
but I mean, like, the amount of energy you're talking about is minuscule compared to the amount of energy that nature produces and does, that I don't think that man can recreate or cause. I mean, what the last caller was talking about with the hurricanes, like, so I looked it up. A hurricane, not like the Katrina size ones, but like the normal ones, and releases the same amount of energy as 10,000 nuclear bombs. I mean, that's pretty significant.
You know, the poles have been shifting for a long time.
Sure.
You know, so the whole tectonic action of the planet is just adjusting, you know, as our poles shift, the continent shift, the weather pattern shift, the ocean shift. You know, the planet's been climate change nonstop since it first started.
Yeah, I think the last time I read it's like 36 miles a year, or is it 18 miles a year?
It's varying. It's alternating very quickly now. It's very unstable at this point.
Yeah, they say it's going into Siberia right now. That it's really migrating at a fast rate,
which is kind of weirdly cool.
I think yeah, and we're actually due for a shift, magnetic pole shift, but those have always occurred on a cyclical basis.
Yep, and you know, sometimes they think that those are cataclysmic events as well. But you know, the long story short is CO2 events can be devastating, and a lot of times, you know, they're volcanic. So, you know, they've weighed the option on, you know, if it's dangerous for permafrost to melt and what CO2 can actually do, and it is dangerous. Like it, you know, we only have so much space on North America, and they really have to push climate change. You know, like I said, they take useful idiots like Greta. They get everybody thinking that we're going to fill Europe with climate refugees, and that'll be the next thing that you hear out there.
I've read about them.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as those gases go, take the Dead Sea, for example. There's the Dead Sea will overturn every so often and release methane, and there's a theory that caused one of the a massive human death at times in history. But methane in the atmosphere naturally breaks down into CO2 and water. So, is that a methane event or a CO2 event? How would that be recorded in history? But yeah, I mean, these events happen periodically. If you look at the average release of CO2, humans release about 5% of the annual CO2 release every year. The rest is a natural release.
Well, if they inject seawater under the permafrost on the North Slope for another 20 or 30 years, and that permafrost slowly melts from underneath it, because obviously salt water melts ice. They've created an environment where you have not just methane, but you have hydrogen sulfide, and there's thousands of well casings imported from South Korea, and we're talking about the South Korean steel in the past. That I mean, everybody knows what that does. It creates iron sulfide. You know, they've created a dangerous thing for reclamation on the slope by injecting too much seawater. That if it melts through the permafrost, it's not just CO2. You're going to have all sorts of gas that you can't control.
Yeah, and CO2 is, as far as a biologically dangerous gas, is just an asphyxiant. It's not toxic. But hydrogen sulfide is.
Yeah.
Well, don't they inject the water though, just for pressure, right?
Well,
it's not to melt anything, because seawater freezes too. I've driven across the Arctic Ocean onto island.
For all the times you guys have been on the slope, have you ever heard about igneous sakumi?
Hui?
Igneous sakumi.
No.
Yeah, they take CO2 and they inject it back underground into the hydrate formations up there. So they actually take CO2 back out past Kapurek and inject it out there is what they do.
Oh, right.
And they've been working on this for a long time, trying to figure out what to do with the extra CO2 and to see if they can make it viable to, get more methane out of hydrate and things like that. And it's good for an experiment, but in the long haul of things, the permafrost on the North Slope, if they breach that, there's no way to fix it, is what I'm saying. So you have to weigh the economic benefit of it versus the long-term benefit for sure.
Right.
Yeah. And
we'll see someday.
Yeah, and our conversation is, that we were having before, is discussing the issue of using politics to try to drive a false economy, basically to sell climate change bonds. Saying, our CO2 is causing global climate change, and we're all going to die off in the future. So you need to buy these bonds, and so
the new war bonds,
right? The new war. But in discussing extinction events in the past, there's not enough. There's a book called Green Sky out, and I haven't. I've only read a short synopsis of it, but it tries to claim that CO2 events in the past have resulted in massive die-offs because of global warming as a result. But there's actually little to no evidence to support that theory. And CO2 levels have been far higher in the past than they are today. Current CO2 levels are one of the lowest that Earth has ever seen. If you go back to the Triassic, it was running 1,500 to 2,000 parts per million versus the 400 parts per million that they get all up in arms about today. During the late Carboniferous, it was running at the same levels it was today, and then it had a sudden jump going into the Triassic.
Yep.
So
the other interesting thing is there were more days in a year back there because the planet was rotating much faster. So the planet spins and it wobbles, and slowly, for the last 4 million years, the planet itself has slowed down. Every day it slows down by a matter of seconds. It loses the speed, and the surface is exposed to the sun longer every day. And eventually it's going to get hotter until it just burns up and stops. And one side of the planet will burn up and one side will be dark. So every single day it gets warmer by just definition of math. As the planet slows down, it's going to get warmer.
Yeah, but it's a very slow rate. We're not going to see it in our lifetimes.
No, but it does happen. I mean, when the dinosaurs were living, there were 450 days in a year because the planet was rotating that much faster.
How does it rotate if it's flat?
Yeah. It's a natural synergy of just the momentum of the planet. And it might have had something to do with the size of animals living back then, too. It could have affected gravity itself, and so animals had the ability to grow in enormous sizes.
Yeah,
nobody's been able to explain it.
Yeah, part of that has to do with atmospheric drag. The same theory is applied to Venus. The very thick atmosphere that they have. Their atmosphere is 90 times. On the surface, it's 90 atmospheres. That's the pressure. It's actually a supercritical fluid on the surface, and it. One of the theories is that the reason it rotates so slowly is that the atmospheric drag slowed it down. So. Yeah, there's that as well.
But long story short, I think the reason they're pushing so much climate change is there's just big money into it. So they're wanting to move in Alaska. You see it right now. They're wanting to move a lot of villages. The NOAA is flying around looking for whales for the whale hunts, and they're really pushing climate change on the coastal communities in Alaska. And you've also seen it break ASN. Now, you've seen ASRC and other oil companies want to pull out because the younger generation, they got into the whole no DAPL movement of being a water protector.
Yeah, well, what's going on with Goldman Sachs and all that? Goldman Sachs is, like I said in first hour, is pushing the green bonds, and it's a scam. It's a pyramid scheme, is what it is. You just convince young people to invest in this thing to help the environment. It doesn't actually make money. There's no way for it to actually make money. To get money out of it, you have to use the money from the new investors. But Goldman Sachs, I was reading on Armstrong Economics what it looks like. He says what it looks like is happening is that Goldman Sachs is selling off their oil assets to Russian, Chinese, and Middle Eastern entities. Replace the Western investments with bogus bonds that they're going to lose money on. The financial capital of the world it's moving into Asia in the next 15 years. And so sell the assets off to those nations. And so this is just a big economic game as as economic powers shift to another region. So the people who buy this stuff are just going to go broke. They're going to go poor.
Yeah.
So,
and carbon taxes. They've been pushing carbon taxes for a long time too.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have bought into it and already paid so much money into it that it's kind of hard to get them to back out of that now.
Yeah.
In any climate change or CO2 argument for sure.
Yeah.
But a lot of what goes on in Alaska is not just the Goldman Sachs and the Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, but in my opinion, I think Alaska gets abused by the penny stock exchange out of Vancouver and Toronto. All the big mines you'll notice are Canadian, and we don't trade penny stocks in the United States for some reason. So if Alaska really wanted to fix itself, Alaska would form an in-state penny stock exchange to fund mining on state lands. And that would fix it, really. Because Alaska is rich, but only in mining lands. The state itself doesn't own much oil or timber or fish, but the state owns a lot of minerals.
Yeah, and one of the issues that Alaska has is I've talked about so many times before, is the Jones Act. It's too expensive to import and export from here, and really the wealth of a nation is built upon the the productive capacity of its people. But what's the point of producing here if it costs so much to export or import that you're non-competitive? And we're so much closer to Asia than the continental U.S. I mean, we're 1,500 miles closer to Asia than Seattle is. And so
we also don't have a rat infestation. That's why they don't want boats in here, and they'll even sink those boats before they come to Alaska because they're full of rats. And they have, when those boats float over, they sink them. They don't even want those things to show up. But the bottom line is that Alaska is just not competitive because it costs so much to do business. And they had to change the Jones Act to bring in those jackup rigs because there was, the United States doesn't have a ship big enough to move a jackup rig.
Yeah.
And, if Alaska was smart, we would have probably been building our own drill rigs right here in Alaska, so we could have succeeded. You look at Russia, they build semi-submersibles, and they're nice rigs.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You look at us in the Cook Inlet, we don't have anything. We don't have a single rig here. We had to recycle the same old jackup rigs 3 times already.
Fox News. 6 people were on that plane when it went down in Lafayette near a Walmart superstore and a post office earlier this morning. This local reporter saying,
right now, investigators, they are not releasing any details on the names of the people involved in this crash. We're told that right now they're still reaching out to family members, trying to notify everyone first before they do release those names to the public.
The husband of one of the 5 killed said his wife is one of the fatalities. She's a sports reporter, the daughter-in-law of an LSU football coach. Authorities would not say whether that plane was en route to the LSU game. 6 people injured on the ground, 1 man inside a vehicle suffering very serious injuries. It's now 10 o'clock in the morning in Hawaii, where the search will resume, weather permitting, for the 7th person on that tour helicopter that crashed on the top of a mountain in Kauai. The bodies of 6 have been found. There are no indications that anyone could have survived that crash. It is now raining in the area. Visibility is poor because of cloud cover. Families of the victims have been notified. 2 of the passengers on board, children. That remote area, a familiar sight to fans of the film Jurassic Park. A winter storm that closed interstate highways in Southern California has moved on to the southwest, bringing heavy snow to higher elevations there. Ice and blizzard conditions expected in parts of the Midwest as the storm moves on. Freezing rain expected to ice up roads. The storm then heading to the northeast in time for New Year's. And America is listening to Fox News.
Hey, that's a lot of fuel for one snow go. Where are you going?
I'm going village to village.
Your family that big?
No.
Well, why are you going to all those places?
I got a duty, a job, a mission.
For what? You going to get to know everyone in every village?
Well, sort of.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm a census taker.
You taking what from them?
No, dude. I'm working as a census taker to make sure that all Alaska Natives are accurately counted.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's about making sure others know who we are and where we are. This information affects things that we really care about, like how much salmon we need for the season.
Huh.
It affects our subsistence way of life when they know how many of us depend on it.
Cool. Can I help?
Sure. When I come by, open your door.
All right, will do.
Participate and help shape our future for generations to come. Start here. Learn more at 2020census.gov. Paid for by U.S. Census Bureau.
Great food, great Alaskan spirit. Great food, great Alaskan spirits. That's Brewster.
Great food, great Alaskan spirits can be found right here in Fairbanks. Brewster's is Fairbanks' choice for the best steaks and best burgers. Open for lunch and dinner in 2 convenient locations. Make it a great food, great Alaskan spirits day today.
Great food, great Alaskan spirits. That's Brewster's.
Sparky the Fire Dog here. Protect your family from fire. Make sure your home has smoke alarms in every bedroom, outside your sleeping areas, and on every level of your home, even your basement. For games and activities, go to sparky.org.
We want to keep you, your family, and your community safer from fire. This message brought to you by the National Fire Protection Association and your local fire department. Visit sparky.org.
Ice fishing is a heck of a lot of fun for the whole family, but you have to be prepared. And the place you get prepared is Frontier Outfitters, where you'll find the rods, reels, and tackle you need. You'll also find a variety of augers, snowshoes, winter boots, and clothing, and your license as well. If you need snow machine and ATV accessories, they're right downstairs at Century Hardware. Your next outdoor adventure begins with Frontier Outfitters for your Alaskan lifestyle. Frontier Outfitters in the Gavora Mall.
People join Walk MS to raise awareness and funds that change the world for everyone affected by multiple sclerosis. Walk MS brings communities together, creating teams with friends, loved ones, and coworkers to rally around those we care about and end MS forever. Together, we can change the world for people with MS. Register today at walkms.org.
Cold are the people, winter of life. We tremble in shadows this cold endless night. Frozen in the snow, all my roses sweet, flowers that will echo the sunrise, fire of hope is our only one. Weary its flame will be dying Voice in the distance, call in the night, all in you enfold us. You speak of love, gentle on the ear, you whisper softly. Rumors of a dawn so embracing, breathless love always torn and souls. Soon we will know of the morning. Shine like the star, your light that guides shepherds and kings from afar. Shimmer in the sky, so rising in the warmth of the sun's love, knowing of night and day, Spirit, we wait for you.
Welcome back to Patriot Lament. Whoops, turn it up. Welcome back to Patriot Lament. We've got one more hour here we're going to do. We're just having a fun discussion. Always having fun discussions off air. Sometimes you can't say things on air, you get in trouble. But I'm going to say one thing on air.
Okay.
So that first commercial there about the census.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know if those are really Alaska Natives that are talking on that commercial or not.
Yeah. I couldn't tell either.
Or if they're just trying to sound like it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're just trying to sound like it, then the government is stereotyping.
Mm-hmm. a good question.
I want to know who made that commercial. The actors in the commercial. Plus, it's just a dumb commercial. But besides that, you know where I'm going with it.
Probably made in D.C.
Yeah, no doubt. Of course,
it's a federal thing. Why would the state put out a commercial
right.
like that?
No joke. You're right. Yeah. Telling. Yeah, that was quite the airport. Millions of dollars. All right. What the heck were we talking about? Guess maybe it wasn't that good. No, it was, though. How serious? Oh, it's a new story. I would have talked about it. Too bad now. I have seen some stuff. There's just some random thoughts here on rent controls. You know, because some of the like the Bernie Sanders wants to have federal rent control.
Yeah, I saw that.
What an idiot. And I guess the Washington Post had an article a few days ago. You know, the Washington Post of all places. Like, yeah, every economist, even, you know, what we would consider retarded economists that aren't real economists, everyone says the same thing about rent control. It's bad. It destroys towns. It destroys rent. It destroys cities. And guys like Bernie, you know, it's all just to get votes. You know, rent control. Rah! It's just so stupid. Like, are you that dumb? Every economist in the world knows that rent control destroys cities.
Yeah.
And yeah. Oh well. This is a little interesting though. This is Federal Reserve Chairman Powell. None of us have much of a sense of what the economy will be like in 2021. Fed Chairman Jay Powell, the Fed money. Oh, he's making a funny here. And the Fed money pumpettes have no understanding of the nature of price inflation. First of all, this is actually a good thing. We should talk about this. We'll go back to the Queen next week because I have a little bit more to talk about her. Maybe the story won't generate anything. We'll just go back to the Queen. Well, first, there's no reason to want price inflation. Can you think of any reason why you would want things to cost more unless you're the one selling it? No, it doesn't work that way because everything goes up.
Yeah.
You know what the inflation is in Venezuela?
Not knowing what it is right now.
200,000%. Dang, 200,000%. The same place that the Bernie Sanders said that's where socialism is working. He's right. It is working exactly the way socialism is supposed to work. Yeah, I saw this really cool deal. This an actual refugee, you know, because people are leaving like crazy. And this dude left there, was in Colombia, and which I didn't know this, but Colombia still gets quite a few Americans, I guess, visitors.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't know that.
He makes wallets, purses, and things like that out of Venezuela currency. So he has his brothers live there or something, so they'll go back and, you know, trade actual something with value for Venezuelan currency, and then he'll make articles out of the currency and then sell it to tourists that are coming into Colombia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's all high denomination stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, if you can get a couple bucks American, it's worth way more than the $10,000s.
So
$20,000 Venezuela wallet that he made.
So does he laminate the bill onto leather or something? I wouldn't think the paper would hold up.
Well, there's some pictures of it on Economic Policy Journal. Let me see if I can. Oh, it's right here. See if I can pull it, make it look like a bigger picture. Yeah, check that out. You can kind of see it.
Okay.
Yeah, so the guy.
Okay.
Well, at 200,000%, your dollar's not worth much. But good for this guy to take. Talk about taking lemons and making some lemonade.
Yeah. Yeah, no, if your wages aren't increasing at the same rate, or if you're a business owner and interest isn't running at the same rate, then you're going to lose money.
The demand for the bolivars, Venezuelan bolivars, or whatever you call them, is skyrocketing, but not for the bill's monetary value. So Hector Cordero weaves the currency into wallets and purses, and he sells to tourists in Colombia. His artful crafts underscore the creative methods that Venezuelans are using to extract value from a fiat currency amid skyrocketing inflation many consider worthless. The notes are worth nothing, he says. The notes I use are not circulating anymore since last year. He uses about 70 notes of $100 bolivars, whatever, each to handcraft a small coin purse, or 100 of the notes to make a large wallet. A handbag can take up to 1,200 notes to produce.
Okay.
That's pretty awesome. So he'll make a handbag out of 1,200 notes. So $120,000 worth of that he's putting into. $120,000 bolivars worth. That's just funny. So that's from inflation. Let's get back to the Federal Reserve Chairman of the United States government. First, there's no reason you want any price inflation. You have to be thinking in a Salvatore Dali mode to think price inflation is needed to get the economy going. Second, the idea that price inflation is going to climb in some simpler linear fashion has no basis in theory or history. Fed members are shallow thinkers to the degree that they hold this view. Then he says, as he points out in his Economic Policy Journal Daily Alert, the Fed is not going to get concerned about inflation until it hits 3%. But by then, this is the good part. By then, the Fed would have to raise short-term rates to around 5% to choke off the inflation, short-term interest rates. And they're not going to do that in the short term. The failure to grapple quickly with 3% inflation could result in a rapid spiking to 5% as measured by government price indexes. And then we're off to the races. The Fed is pretty much run by a group that has an economic understanding only a notch above Gideon Gono. I have no idea who that is. Oh, he has a link of who that is. Oh, the Zimbabwe central banker. Yes, of course. So what he's saying is they want to push it. They try to have. Federal Reserve says that inflation needs to be about 3% or 2%.
It's 2%. Yeah, keep up with.
And he's saying that what he thinks they'll probably do is to get inflation to rise quickly. They'll spike it and it'll go up to 3%. And the only way to stop it is to raise interest rates, he thinks, to 5%. And we know for darn sure they're at 0 right now. There ain't no way they can throw up interest rates to 5%.
Well, the issues, multiple issues with the low interest rates right now. One is that government pensions are by law invested in bonds, long-term bonds, and so Social Security is 100% invested by law, and so they're not earning any money, and have a negative cash flow. And Social Security is expected to run out of money in 2031 or so. It changes every year. The last I saw was 2031, and then they'll be pulling out of. They'll just be surviving off the incoming taxes. But yeah, pretty much all government pensions are somewhat or all invested in that. So if the interest rates don't go up, and they're it don't go up, then the pension funds will go broke, and they require 8% interest in order to break even.
Is it 8?
Yeah, it's 8%.
Well, they hate me.
But
it hasn't been 8 for years.
No, and they've been doing this thing where they've been keeping interest rates low to try to stimulate the economy, but it doesn't work because the thing is, if people don't have confidence in, if some guy wants to start a business, if he doesn't have confidence he's going to make money, it doesn't matter what the interest rate is. He's not going to go borrow it.
Right.
So, I mean, the U.S. has near zero interest rates. Europe has negative interest rates, all trying to stimulate the economy. And actually, what Europe is trying to do is try to discourage savings. Because if you put your money in the bank there, they charge you for it, right? Because they have negative interest rate. And he was pointing out interest rates going up to 5%. But they in the repo market, I was reading, it's October, November. I can't remember which month now. There was one day where the interest rate spiked to 10%, and that was the market, the market interest rates, not what was dictated by the Fed. And the repurchasing agreements, which are overnight bonds, governments sell them just to make some quick cash overnight.
Yeah.
And then they get resold. But they've been running negative interest rates. So when someone buys it, it's at a negative interest rate. They're hoping that the next buyer has a lower interest rate, more negative, in order to make any money on what they held. But that one night they spiked to 10%. And so what it shows is an increasing instability in interest rates, which is expected to show up as a repo crisis coming into the next year.
Mm-hmm.
So the interest rates are on. As far as the market is concerned, the interest rates are trying to go up, but that's being fought by central banks.
Well, the Donald is saying that the Federal Reserve Powell's an idiot because he hasn't lowered them even more.
Yeah, which is would be a horrible move.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's trying to devalue the dollar.
Yeah,
and that's the way to fight the China people.
Yeah, well, if you want to increase trade, then devaluing your currency is one way to, or having a lower currency is beneficial, rather than just trying to devalue it and work outside the market. But
wouldn't you rather have a strong dollar that says you can just buy anyone you want?
If you're trying to export stuff, you don't want the strong currency,
right?
Because no one can afford to buy from you.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to end up, the global economic situation is that everyone's currency is in crisis mode. The dollar is the only one. The dollar is the best option, I should say. It's the only place for people to go, and so investors in Europe are running to the dollar right now because of the issues over there, and that's going to cause a liquidity crisis.
Right.
And that's what was going on with the repo thing. That's going to cause a liquidity crisis, which will inflate the value of the dollar. And that's what's going to cause the economic problems in the U.S. because you're going to have people hoarding the only thing left to put their value in.
That slows down. So that'd be a slowing of velocity, right?
Yes.
I think it's been pretty level for a long time, many years.
Yeah. So you're going to have a lot of foreigners putting their money into U.S. equities, into the Dow. So.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if it did happen the way that Wenzel's talking about. And he's just giving an example. If it hits 3, then going to 5 is like snap of a finger.
Yep.
And if it hits 5, they have to raise interest rates, which would make the Donald freak out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, he better hope things like that, just nothing happens until after he's reelected. Because whoever does get elected, I'm afraid they're going to be the ones to get blamed for whatever happens, even though they'll have absolutely nothing to really do with it. You know, the one thing I've always thought funny, though, is how they keep the interest rates down when they know, I mean, they're trying to keep the ship floating with the interest rates, but they know that the only thing that they've ever had in the past when there's a crisis like 2008 is to lower interest rates. Well, if you're already near zero, what are you going to do? Minus?
Yeah.
Negative interest rates?
That's.
I mean, how's the European Union going to bail themselves out when they're already at negative interest rates?
Well, that's the climate bonds. That's what those are about. They want to. The reason that they want to do that is they want to get ignorant yuppies to invest their money into those climate bonds, which will be nothing more than a cash cow to support the euro.
Ain't it funny how things work? And don't forget, folks, you heard it here. Patriot Cement, because we know what's really going on. You got conspiracy theories? Shoot. We've got theories based in fact. Let's take the phone call.
Okay.
I like how he did that. Hello, caller. You're up next.
Hi, this is Layla.
Hi, Layla.
So I think I'm going to take it a little off topic. Sorry, but I've been waiting a while. I think that the guys on the census commercial are definitely Alaskan Native because of the accents. Those are hard accents to actually fake. But I think, yes, the government is racist, and I think that whoever wrote it, didn't know anything about Alaska. Because notice the first line, that's an awful lot of gas for a snow-go.
Right, snow-go.
Nobody calls them snow-goes.
I know.
A snow-go is one brand of snow machine. And so they either didn't know anything about Alaska, or they're marketing to the entire country, which would be confused by the term, in the lower 48, they'd be confused by the term snow machine.
Right.
But like my cousins in the Midwest, they call them snowmobiles. And if you said snow machine, they'd be like, huh? What? But they know just enough. And I'm thinking those actors probably pointed it out to them. Nobody in Alaska calls it a snowmobile. If we say that line, you're going to lose all the native people right there.
Yeah, you're no longer an Alaskan if you call it a snowmobile.
Right. But I would say that the accent is definitely spot on. Those are either some really, really, really good actors or they're Alaskan Native.
I just want to know if they really are, though, because otherwise I'm going to have to file something. I got to file something. Make some kind of complaint.
Yeah.
Because they're stereotyping.
Yeah. They are stereotyping. The Alaska Native population is 14% of the population of the state, which means that there's an awful lot of us Alaskans out here who aren't expecting a snow machine to pull up in our yard and ask us how many people are in our house, which my answer will be, there are 4 people living here, and no, you don't get to know their names.
And slam the door.
That's right. So, yeah. It is stereotyping. If a fella showed up on my doorstep in a snow machine and asked me that question, I'd still get the same answer.
Right.
Because your census taker, you now became kind of the enemy.
Pays $28 an hour plus benefits.
It does.
That's pretty good cash money. I wonder if it pays that the whole nation, or if that's like an Alaska rate.
I don't know. I know somebody who said that their kids applied for it, and I guess I should call them up and see if the kid got the job or not. So,
well, even when I lived in Nome and King Salmon, the state, the government guys, they always drove around in a Ford Explorer. I don't think I ever saw anyone on a snow machine.
Right.
So,
although it'd be really hard to get.
So that seems like a stereotype too.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be really hard to get to places like Nulata. But my guess is that this guy isn't taking a snow machine from village to village, taking, right there.
He's taking a Cessna Caravan or something.
Yeah, a Navajo maybe, because he has to carry all those census forms with him.
It's county by county. So let's see how much they make in Alabama.
Oh, there you go.
Well, they have signs out that on the road that says $28 to $31 an hour.
Alabama's looks like it averages $13.50 an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's still better than minimum wage. I mean, I don't know what the minimum wage in Alabama is, but it's low.
And then in Alaska, all of Alaska is $28 an hour, except for Anchorage. They get $22.50.
Oh, okay.
So it's regional. It goes by the region.
Well, and it does make sense. I mean, you got to pay people more if you're going to expect them to be out in the cold. And,
oh, well, yeah, I'm sure they're thinking of cost of living and all that.
especially with walking up, people's walkways in Alaska, which, could be dangerous.
They get you shot, hazardous duty pay.
Dogs.
Wolves. What's a really poor state?
Mississippi, Louisiana.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'd say Mississippi is probably it used to be the poorest anyway.
Yeah.
They're $13.50.
Okay.
So yeah, it sounds like it's regional, like they drew lines on the map and said, as you go up, it's going to cost more.
It's county by county, literally. Every county is different.
It's probably based somewhat on whatever the minimum wage is in that county, with a increased factor of some sort, I would guess. Because that's how Davis-Bacon works and stuff.
Right.
They have it factored off of whatever the average is or something.
The lowest I see is $13.50.
Yeah, it's still a nice amount of money for a short period to work too. But
Hawaii's only $16. I guess they figure.
Wow, because Hawaii's got like the highest cost of living of any of the states.
Yeah.
So you could go to Hawaii and get a census job and make money while you're on vacation.
You could.
You'd have to live on the beach though, in a tent.
And you can't if you're out of state. If you're not a Hawaiian resident, you can't live on a beach in the tent.
Yeah.
You have to be a Hawaiian resident to do that.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
You're probably not going to live on the beach in Alaska doing the census, so.
I wonder why they don't do the census during the summer. I wonder why they don't do the census in the summertime.
Well, it carries on. I remember.
Yeah, I guess
they came to my place last time. It was sometime in the summer. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember they gave me a questionnaire.
I think they just gear up at their first of the year
a few years ago, and it's like, I'm not answering this crap. Are you crazy? They ask you all kinds of stuff. And, I think I talked to him on the phone once. Some guy's like, we had the constitutional authority to ask these questions. And, no, you don't.
The only question they can ask under that is how many people. That's the only thing that they're authorized to ask.
Only thing they're authorized to ask.
If you go by the Constitution.
Right. I just thought it's funny he pulled that one.
Yeah.
They probably train them that, you'll probably get some constitutionalists out there that don't want you to answer questions. I should have said, oh, really? What article is that in? Is there something? Let's see. I remember David, the King David. I can't remember the exact story now. He did a census of the people one time. God got mad at him for it. Just another example of the Bible, the Constitution, contradicting the Bible. I don't see how that can be because Jesus wrote the Constitution. Pretty sure it says that in some book. Somebody's book. It does say that in somebody's book. Let's look that up. Angry at David for God's anger burned against Israel because David took a census.
I think when they came to me last time, I didn't even answer that question. I just didn't feel like talking to him.
Okay, in 1 Chronicles 21 says, Satan rose up against Israel and incited David to take a census of Israel.
Okay. Well, Herod did it to collect taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what it's for anyway. It's all about how much money can you steal.
Right. Well, and they tell you
that's really what it's about.
That's not what they tell you.
Even the Constitution, it pretty much tells you that. It's how are we going to allocate the representatives? Well, what does that really mean? It means how much are we going to steal from you?
How much does each representative get to take back home with them?
How much booty is each representative worth? That's what it really is.
But in the Bible, it says that Satan incited David to take a census. God's anger burned towards Israel. But in America, it's your constitutional duty to do the census. Yep. We're a Christian nation.
Right.
The Constitution was written by Jesus. Funny how he contradicts himself between the two so many times. What the heck were we talking about before Lila called?
The commercial.
Oh. No.
Or no, she called about
inflation.
Inflation, yeah.
Goodness. This census stuff sounds pretty good. I think the last time we did it, I did tell them how many people live there because I was tired of them bothering me. First, they're just like, shove off.
Mm-hmm. But then they came back.
Oh, yeah. Then they started calling.
Oh, really? I never got a call.
Well, they won't call me now because we don't have a home phone anymore.
Oh, that's why. I just had a cell phone then. They don't call.
There's a reason right there to get rid of your home phone. Yeah. Why do people have home phones anyways? I mean, do people seriously still have home phone numbers?
Well, it's to keep the radiation from getting to your brain, but then most of the time it's a cordless phone anyway. So
yeah,
it's kind of pointless.
Who has a? I don't even think they make.
Well, I had a home phone in Salcha, but it was because the cell reception so bad.
Right, you needed one.
Yeah.
Yep, that's not a bad idea. You know what? I was at the post office the other day, and I was waiting in line. I had one of the yellow card deals, and some lady. There's two helping people, whatever, and a lady came up and said, could I get a new phone book, please? Are they out yet? And she's like, oh, yeah, we just got them in, blah, blah. And she hands her a phone book. And I said, I didn't know they made phone books anymore. Why do they still make phone books? And the lady said, well, I guess, I don't know. Some people like to look through the phone book for numbers, I guess.
Some people still don't have internet. So
can't you find everything on there? And then I thought about it later. If you specific people, I guess you might have to look in a phone book.
Yeah, because if you try to look up like white page stuff on the internet, it's always a paid service.
Right, they want you to pay for it.
Yeah, so.
But I mean,
it's still useful for that. Yeah.
Business wise, you can find any business you want without it.
So I could see them still publishing white pages, but the yellow pages, questionable.
Yeah, because, I mean, why would a business even want? Because you have to pay for yellow pages.
Yeah, but, there are a couple of times in here, like say the power goes out. You want to call the power company to let them know that.
Well, how are you going to call the power company if your power going out?
Well, if you have a hard line, cell phone. But if you have a hard line, then the power's out. Then you can still call.
That's true.
So then you would use the phone book, right?
Well, you can't though if you have a cordless phone that needs power to work.
No, so that's why I'd keep a hard line in case that ever happened. which it did a couple times because it's just kind of unreliable power at times. When the wind picks up, the trees blow into the lines and knock the power out.
We got about another month here to have that happen.
Yeah,
it does every stinking year. Remember, like 3 or 4 years ago, it was out for 12 days. I think we were out for 5 days.
I was out for a full week, and yeah, but it wasn't bad. I mean, the weather wasn't bad, and I just heated the house with the wood stove, and I kind of enjoyed it, to be honest.
It was interesting. I bring that up because I didn't bring it up. Well, yeah, I did.
Mm-hmm.
When they were having all the fires down in Southern California and whatnot, and so the power company was turning off power randomly around. Who is that power company? I don't know.
PG&E.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So they're shutting off power and everything, and people are freaking out because they're like, wait a minute, we don't. If we don't have, we don't have power, and they're worried about not heat, obviously, but their air conditioners weren't working and all this stuff. And, it was an Economic Policy Journal. It's a pretty funny deal there. And I just thought it was funny, the contrast between Fairbanks power going out. Everyone's got some kind of a generator, or someone that has 3 generators and they'll let you borrow one.
Yeah.
And then down there, Wenzel was saying that, the generators were just flying off the shelves and whatnot. But I was thinking, if you live in a condominium or something like that, I don't think you can just go down and power up your own place. I guess you could have one. No, you don't want it inside. They produce a little bit of carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Not much. The new ones are pretty rad, but
like you have a little inverter generator on your porch, but that's about as far as you could go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't hook anything into the breaker box.
It's just so funny that Rick still has one. That's not bad. We got rid of ours. I was tired of paying for it. Plus, the only people that call our home line are jerks trying to sell stuff.
Oh, yeah.
No one ever. Yeah. I don't need to talk to them. If I wanted their stuff, I'd call them. Rick just threw me off. Oh, I guess I was thinking of the contrast between, here, if power goes off, over several days. And when our power goes off here in Alaska, it goes off at the worst time, right? It doesn't go off. You don't lose power for a week on July 30th.
Right.
It's January 13th.
It's when winter's coming in, and you have the
Friday, January 13th.
Yeah. Yeah.
You lose power. Well, the last few years, though, it's warmed up in the middle of winter. A bunch of wet snow comes down. Then it gets really cold, and everything starts. Like a few years ago, when every other birch tree in town was laid over. It was crazy. But people in Alaska are ready for it for the most part, way more than all those people in California.
Yeah.
It was actually affecting. People were dying.
Yeah.
And there's no snow on the ground just because they didn't have power.
Yeah. I think people here tend to be more ready, even mentally, and instead of going into panic mode.
Right.
I know when when our power went out, it was, oh boy, a power outage.
Oh, I know. That's how it is at our house.
I actually enjoy them. And, a week with, on the wood heat, big deal. A week without, the well pump running, big deal. That's another thing. Here, we have things like the water wagon sites.
Yeah.
You can get water. So that's another advantage that we do have here to stay prepared. But then again, the snow, that's an advantage too, because, you can melt the snow into water.
Yeah.
Plenty of times I've melted snow into bath water, but they didn't have it there. So I guess it's kind of how you look at it. Is it something to panic about, or is it something to improvise with?
It's a great time at my house.
Adventure.
All the girls go running through, lighting candles like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But But yeah, I suppose in California there are you're gonna have a lot of people like patients, respiratory patients that are on oxygen concentrators. They're especially susceptible.
Right, that are at home.
Yeah. So you're gonna have a high concentration of people in that situation, and then usually it's elderly people that end up passing away from heat in situations like that. But I don't know, was California that hot then? I'm not sure.
I think people are just dying from heart attacks. They hadn't had power, but never not had power.
No.
I don't know. It's kind of interesting because we are a little bit more prepared for things like that because of natural causes, and they were having it happen on purpose.
Yeah,
and they weren't very happy.
That's right. It was being shut down on purpose because PG&E didn't want to take blame for any new forest fires, and they were bankrupt.
Right.
Still are bankrupt.
Still are. Right.
So, and are they still continuing those power outages?
I haven't heard that they stopped. I don't know.
Yeah. But you would think that if they were planned power outages, why didn't people just go get prepared instead of waiting for it to happen and then panic and kill themselves?
Mike,
out of ignorance. I don't want to go there.
Don't make me think. Don't make me think of why people don't think. And the solution to them was the government was demanding that they keep their power on. Of course, that's what they said over the airwaves, but they didn't really want to do that because they're all in the same pocket there. So the state of California is talking about taking over the power company, right? And Mike, whenever I can blame the state for something, which is everything, I like to.
Yeah.
So whose fault really is it? Of course it's the states, because they gave PG&E a monopoly over all the power.
Exactly.
There's no competition.
There's not competition.
Just
is
like
not
the
allowed.
Jerks we have here called GVEA.
Yeah, I mean, if I lived down there and I went out to my neighbors and said, "Hey, PG&E is not doing their job. I'm going to buy this generator, and I'm going to I'm willing to wire you guys in. What do you want to do? Here's a contract." I'd go to prison.
Yep.
That's why they have the power outages. It's because of the state.
Yep. Monopolies. That's why whenever we talk about, all these, it's just awful coincidental. All these PM 2.5 crap came up and all these things to restrict wood stoves and yada, yada. And then all of a sudden natural gas comes into the equation. And all of a sudden the North Star Borough gives themselves the full authority to be the, whatever you call it, for the natural gas. So,
and then they run off the company that can actually do it.
Right. So you're the borough. You're the one that has the power. For some reason, we give them the power to produce monopolies. You give yourself the monopoly.
You create a board to rotate your friends in and out.
Coincidence. The previous 8 years, you've been trying to get rid of wood stoves. Then you give yourself the monopoly on natural gas, and then you just start putting the piping in, whether people like it or not, right through their yards. Do you want Fairbanks North Star Borough to be the monopoly on natural gas? No.
You end up very cold one day. Yeah, you're talking about a place not to have a monopoly. This is it.
Right, we need all the competition in the world that we can get.
Because you by creating a monopoly, you remove all the redundancy. It's like that in Puerto Rico when they had the after the hurricane. It's like Katrina. Yeah. It knocked out their power, and then they were doing all that repair work. And one guy on one excavator accidentally hit the main, and it knocked out the entire island. Well, the only reason that happens is because of the state monopoly, and they were actually dumb enough to design something with no redundancy at all.
I've done that before.
Yeah.
But not to a whole town.
Right. But, I mean, it's not it's not the guy's fault. It's the state's fault.
Right. Oh, no. Absolutely.
Things happen. And if you design something like that with no redundancy, what are you what do you expect is going to happen sometime?
High prices.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like government itself is monopoly, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much does it cost? $4.5 trillion a year. 23 trillion in debt. That's monopoly. Higher costs.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. Yeah. We will see. Yeah, I think it is interesting, though. I mean, it's good Fairbanks people are a little bit more aware of that because it may serve to their advantage in the future when it's not a natural crisis.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes along the lines with what we were talking about with the inflation, along with the, and folks are saying, like, what do you mean? Why can't they raise interest rates to 5%? It's because of the national debt. 5% would take up, I think, like 3/4 of all taxes right now to pay the interest on the debt. 5% interest rates. 8% would take all of every dime that the federal government takes in taxation to pay the interest on the national debt.
Yeah.
That is the real reason why interest rates are at 0, because the government doesn't want to pay any interest on their debt. That must be nice.
Yeah, well,
can you imagine getting a credit card and setting your own interest rate? I'd be at -10, -10. I'd be getting paid. I'd be getting paid to use that credit card. Actually, if I could set it, I would make it -100. That way
you could double your money. You could,
right.
Yeah.
Free stuff. I would be the government. Well, we got a few calls, so we only got 8 minutes. Let's blast through them real quick. Hello, caller. You are up.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, why couldn't Fairbanks just vote to be a sanctuary city when it comes to wood stoves and smoke?
Kind of like the firearms sanctuary?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I mean, everybody votes to do it, and they break the federal laws, and nobody seems to do anything else about it.
I like that idea.
And then the second thing I was wondering is, did Frank get cremated?
I've not seen anything or heard anything about what is going on with Frank.
Because my thoughts on that was, it'd be great because that way, he went up in smoke. Anyway, that's it for today.
He would have laughed too, though.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
He would have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Hello, caller. You're up next.
Yes, Frank did get cremated, and he would have laughed. I got a poem here for you.
Do you know where did they?
Hugs. It's called Hugs.
Okay.
It's wondrous what a hug can do. A hug can cheer you when you're blue. A hug can say I love you so, or gee, I hate to see you go. A hug is welcome back again, and great to see you. Where have you been? A hug can smooth a small child's pain and bring a rainbow after rain. The hug, there's just no doubt about it. We scarcely could survive without it. A hug delights and warms and charms. It must be why God gave us arms. Hugs are great for fathers and mothers, sweet for sisters, swell for brothers. And chances are your favorite aunts love them more than potted plants. Kittens crave them, puppies love them. Heads of state are not above them. A hug can break the language barrier and make your travels so much merrier. So stretch those arms without delay and give or take a hug today. Have a happy new year.
Thank you. That was great.
Goodbye.
Appreciate it. That was pretty good.
Well, that's good to end the show on.
It almost sounded like the Dr. Seuss, the way it flowed. Hello, caller. You're up next.
Hey, you guys know why there's no snakes in Alaska?
No.
Because Lisa Murkowski's in Washington, D.C.
I was going to say because of the cold, but then I knew that wasn't the answer.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, isn't she in Fairbanks for Christmas?
I hope not. It warmed up, so if it was 50 below, yeah, that'd be good for her.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
Disagree with that one. All right.
Enjoy your program.
Appreciate it. We're getting a couple good ones at the end.
Yeah.
They're all in Washington, D.C. Yeah. Man, we jumped all over the board. Next week, let's talk about the Virginia law, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's talking about the boogaloo down there. If you don't know, folks, we'll be talking about it next week, but we'll just give you a quick update. So Virginia, the northern part of Virginia is very socialistic, and they pretty much have all the votes, even though they're just a small part of the state has all the people. Mm-hmm. The rest of them are rural for the most part, and they're good old boys. As in, they're more, not quite, more towards like the type of Virginians that I like to talk about, like the Jeffersons and the Madisons and the good Virginians, the Patrick Henrys, the George Masons. So they passed. So Democrats took over. First thing they said they're going to do is ban assault rifles, confiscate assault rifles, registration, all this and that, blah, 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 blah. So all the counties outside of the 2 or 3 counties that have all the population have set up what they call Second Amendment sanctuary counties. Okay. So they said they will not obey the gun confiscation laws of the state legislature. And the same rats that literally, I saw some articles on, I think it was the governor, who was spoke out in favor of sanctuary cities for migrants, immigrants, against Trump's immigration laws, is saying that this is unconstitutional, that they have to follow the law on confiscating weapons. Which is like, wait a minute. Weapons confiscation is unconstitutional, you dolt. What? But the sheriffs of these said counties, which is only reason why I think that sheriffs are better than having like what we have, if they're good folks, because they're directly elected by the people. Anyways, sheriffs, accordingly, constitutionally, whatever, lawfully, are the highest political office in the land, in the county. Anyways, all these sheriffs are like, we ain't confiscating jack. We're not helping you. You're not coming into our county, yada, 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 and all that. So we'll see what happens. And I think sometime in January, they're going to have a protest at the Virginia State Capitol after the law takes effect. I believe it's after the law takes effect. Okay. An armed protest. Everyone bring your AR and AK. Oh, okay. To basically make them confiscate them. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. Virginia might turn into good Virginia again. We'll see. Anyways, folks, we're out of time. Keep gas ready for your snow go and your generator. Snow machine. And we'll see you next week. We'll have lots more to talk about. Have a great week. Happy New Year. Happy New Year? Is that this Wednesday?
Like Wednesday.
Oh, shoot fire. Happy New Year, folks. We'll see you next year.
Welcome, everybody, to the health show that knows Health Talk Radio. Brought to you by the Alaska Center for Natural Medicine, only on KFAR 660 AM. Broadcasting the Fairbanks and beyond. So sit back, relax, and prevent a heart attack. Here's your host, Dr. Scott Looper, your guide to better health.